Disney Tips with Rob and Christine. Ba-da-ba-da. So today's tips comes from a subscriber who asked a question, and that is Alligator Train 422, who asks, please do hotels. My dad is planning our trip, and I went with my friends one time and we stayed on property and it was great, but my dad wants to stay off property. Please give me information to persuade him to stay on property and tips for finding affordable hotels on property. I guess just because Rob and Christine say so doesn't count as a good persuasive bit of information. So
I think that's pretty good.
I think it's great, but I guess we could go in with real information, and I'll let you take it away since I think yours is the real selling point.
Okay, so I think actually I went to Disney once where I didn't stay on property, and it was terrible. So from now on, I always stay on property, and a huge reason is because of the free transportation. Originally, when I was a kid, this meant, the transportation that a lot of people know, which is you can hop on buses that go from your resort to the various parks. They're all marked off for each park. So you go to Magic Kingdom, you get on the Magic Kingdom bus. You go to Epcot, you get on the Epcot bus. There also are certain resorts that have access to waterways. So where was it that we stayed? The cabins, for instance.
Fort Wilderness.
We were able to hop on an actual ferry that took us to either straight to the Contemporary, which was a really cool way to go, or right to Magic Kingdom. And there's some hotels like the Contemporary where the monorail runs right through it, and you can just jump on the monorail. So that's kind of the brilliance of that. And in more recent years, they've offered the Magical Express, which is free bus from the airport to your hotel and from your hotel to the airport. And it's really simple. I think some people think it's more complicated than it is. But once you book your airfare, whether it's through the website or on JetBlue or Delta or wherever you're going through, you just call up Disney, you tell them what your reservation is, you give them your flight information, and they'll be ready to pick you up. And you show up at the airport, you get on this awesome coach bus, you get a cool intro video for your whole ride into Disney World. One of my favorite things is every time I've gone and we drove through the gate, the driver always counts down from 10 as you're crossing the threshold of the property. And it's awesome. It's such a little thing, but it's just so much fun. It's so great if you don't have a car, don't want to pay for a rental. If you're like me, I don't even have a license growing up in New York City, never needed one. So for someone like me who might otherwise be stranded, it's just such a brilliant thing. And it's a nice way to have everything be all encompassing. And it's a huge perk for staying on property.
Yeah, and just to expand on that a bit in a couple of ways. So one, the transportation between parks is available to anybody. You don't have to be staying on property to take a bus from like Magic Kingdom to Epcot. However, there is that initial transport between the hotel and the parks, which, once you're staying off property, that means you have to rent a car. That's an additional cost. Beyond that, I think just beyond the logistics, I think it adds so much to the resort experience to, like you said, we would wake up in the morning and just take a walk to the boats and take a boat to the Magic Kingdom. And aside from the practicality of not having to drive anywhere, that just was such a very relaxing way to start the day. And my favorite part of the My Magic Express, the Magical Express service, is also they will get your luggage for you. So they'll send you before you leave luggage tags that you can put on your luggage. So you check it in when you get to the airport, and then that's it. You don't have to ever touch it again. It will be in your hotel room when you get there. They'll pick it up at the airport. They'll bring it over to the resort. They'll drop it off. And so that's just another thing that you don't have to worry about, which makes it like a really cool reason to stay.
Yep.
But to add to that, there's more than that. There's also what's called extra magic hours. And the concept of extra magic hours is that for people who stay on resort property, depending on the day, they will be able to either go to a certain park an hour early, or they'll be able to stay at a park a couple hours later than normal for people who are not staying on property. And so, especially in the summer months where the attractions could be crowded and the lines are a little longer and you don't get as much ride time as you typically would, having those extra hours can be really great, especially since it sort of thins out the crowds a little bit.
Yeah, and I also feel like it gives you that kind of feeling of exclusivity, which is kind of nice. I mean, let's face it.
And on a more minor note, recently now, if you stay on property, you get the My Magic Plus wristband, which you can buy if you're not staying on property, so you can still have access to it. But it's nice that they throw it in there if you're staying on property. It's always perks like that. And honestly, I can't recall ever staying off property for a Disney trip, but I do recall doing like day trips once my family moved down there, and the amount of effort that the cast members put in when you stay at a resort. Like, I've stayed at hotels in other places, and the amount of effort that goes into it when you're at Disney is just like unmatched. One would almost call it legendary. But you know, one story that comes to mind is when you and I, and we were all with the big group in 2012 when we were staying at the cabins at Fort Wilderness. We had checked in, we went over to the map just to sort of find out where our cabin is and decide where we had to start walking or which bus we needed to take to get to the cabin. And there was just a cast member who was just, I don't even know like what the cast member's job was.
If I remember, he was just in a van. I think he was just heading to do something that he had to do for his job on the other side of the resort.
And he's just like, hey, do you guys need a ride? And we're like, yeah, sure. And loaded up our bags, and we hopped in the van, and he drove us around showing us all the different things where the pool was, stuff like that. Like, totally out of the blue. Wasn't like something we asked for or a service we ordered. Just, it was like, that's how friendly they can be at these resorts, and it's really, really awesome. And also, they will fold your towels into the shape of Mickey Mouse.
So that alone.
That's it. Just take that. Ignore everything we just said. Take that to your dad. They fold the towels in the shape of Mickey Mouse. Done. Done. So there you have it. All the reasons why. And depending on your budget, you know, Disney has different varieties of resorts, and they all are priced differently. You have your values like the Pop Century and the All Stars, and then you have, you know, your really fancy resorts like the Contemporary here that I'm walking around in at MC Magic. So, you know, they try to have an option for all budgets out there. And especially with the All Stars, I think you get to a point where the money you're going to save is compared to what you're getting in return, I think it's negligible. And so for me, it's always a no-brainer to stay on property if you're staying somewhere. So those are our tips for this week. If you have a tip that you'd like to share, feel free to leave it in the comments below. If you have a topic that you'd like us to cover in a future tips video, also feel free to leave it in the comments below. I want to thank you all for watching. Have a great week, whatever you're doing. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at RobPlays. And if you want to find Christine on Twitter, she's at Big Bruin, no G, Evil.
Yep.
See y'all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.